A man has been charged over a Liberal Party factional brawl at a chicken shop in Arncliffe in Sydney South. Police inquiries are continuing into the fight which erupted outside Najee's Charcoal Chicken and Kebabs during a Liberal branch meeting last Monday night. A 37-year-old man was taken to St George Hospital with quite serious injuries after allegedly being attacked and kicked by several people. It was a frightening situation for the people who were there, including elderly women and children. The New South Wales Liberal Party has said it is conducting its own investigation, and there is no question that it should be investigated and that there are probably people who deserve to be expelled from the Liberal Party. You cannot accept this kind of violence. But it shouldn't be the New South Wales Party investigating itself. The Federal Party ought to get involved and exert some discipline on the factions. John Ruddock is a Sydney businessman and Liberal Party member who has spent more than a decade devising democratic reforms which would end ugly factional brawls, you would hope, and also open up the party in New South Wales to be more representative of Liberal voters. And he's with us in the studio. Thanks for coming in, John.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Miranda.
Now, because someone's been charged, obviously, we can't go into too much detail over this brawl, but it's an unusual, I mean, we've heard of brawls, but this is more violent than we would imagine.
Well, look, this is an extreme example, but look, I've been around the party for about 25 years now. Every year or two there's a pretty ugly incident. This is probably the worst, okay, but it is a symptom of a dysfunctional party structure. When Robert Menzies started the Liberal Party in 1945, he went round to all the different states to set up the new party. And when he gave his first speech at the New South Wales division at the Sydney Town Hall, he got up and he said, I've been all around this country setting up this party, and some state divisions are have a little bit of warfare, and some of them are quite peaceful. But he said nothing compares to New South Wales. Right. So this is an ancient problem, and the problem is that the party is structured as though it is a 19th century party, when parties were all about you would join the party and you'd vote for a delegate who would travel by horseback to go to London or Washington or something, and so we had to have delegates because we didn't have trains or things. Now what we're saying is, in the 21st century, we need to have a party which is democratic.
So why is New South Wales worse than anywhere else in the country? Okay,
the big difference is, look, there are factional breakdowns in other states, in the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. In the 1980s in New South Wales, the ALP was pretty bad. Peter Baldwin was bashed up and other things. But what makes it particularly pernicious in the New South Wales Liberal Party is that we are not just talking about political power, we are talking about tens of billions of dollars in lobbying profits annually generated. Now, that is unique. I was reading about a factional brawl that's going on in Ontario at the moment in their Conservative, in their Liberal Party. Police have been involved over rorts and things, but from what I can see, in the Westminster world, it's only this combination of power and millions of dollars that have resulted in this serious dysfunction here.
And also the fact that New South Wales has been so laggardly in terms of democratic reforms, which, for instance, Victoria instituted a long time ago. Now, this is something that you've been really fighting for from inside the party. Few people know about the machinations of New South Wales Liberals better than you do. And you're writing a book that is coming out in September, I believe, called Make the Liberal Party Great Again.
Yes.
So tell us, in a nutshell, what is your plan to make the Liberal Party great, or at least better?
Okay. What we want to do is we want to make Liberal Party membership something that people value. Now, most people who join the Liberal Party now can't stand being a member. They have their arm twisted by someone who says, I need a number in a branch. I want, if you pay your money I want to reduce the fee from about $100 to about $30. And I want to say, if you're a member of the Liberal Party, you're going to vote for who our federal parliamentary leader is once every 3 years. This is the Westminster norm now, where the membership votes for the parliamentary leadership. Most Aussies are quite surprised by it. Even politically informed Australians are quite surprised to know that the recently elected Canadian leader of the opposition was elected as the result of a ballot of about 250,000 party members. And it was a glorious contest. It went on for about a year. There was 16 candidates. There was TV debates. There was a $5 million spending limit. And they all got up there and they threw a few punches at each other, not Arncliffe-style punches, but policy punches. And it was terrific. It was Democracy 101.
Like the US primaries that we see before a presidential election, similar style of contest.
Similar, but a little bit different because we are a Westminster system. So what I'm proposing in the book is, while I love primaries, and primaries is a part of the book, to vote for our federal parliamentary leader or our state parliamentary leaders, you need to be a member of the party, which just means you need to pay $30 or something. I do believe in US-style primaries for electing our lower house candidates at a state and federal level. And that means that, let's say I live in the federal seat of North Sydney, and let's say the Liberal Party primary is on this Saturday morning. You do not need to be a member of the Liberal Party. You just need to care enough about who the Liberal Party chooses as your candidate for a coming federal election. Get out of bed, walk down to the local church hall, and you'll have a list of 10 candidates to vote for. Those 10 candidates will have been out and about in the streets. They would have been knocking on doors. They would have been putting ads on local newspapers saying, look, vote for me. I'm the best Liberal candidate because I believe in A, B and C. Or someone else will say, vote for me because I believe in X, Y and Z.
So what's to stop Greens and Get Up from going out and stacking it, voting for the worst Liberal Party candidate?
Okay, so it's a good question. In the United States, in most states, if you want to vote in a Republican primary, you have to be a registered Republican. But there is about 15 states where it's called an open primary and anyone can vote. Now, the truth is only a tiny number of such hard left-wing people are going to care so much about who the Liberal Party chooses that they're actually going to go and walk through a Liberal Party polling booth with all these Liberal Party people everywhere and go in there and vote for the worst Liberal candidate. Australia has had a few primaries. They didn't get much publicity, but the New South Wales National Party, the New South Wales Labor Party has held some primaries, and on both occasions, from conservative Tamworth to inner city lefty Balmain and Newtown, 10% of the community turned up and said, yes, I care about the party that I support. I want this candidate to win. 10%, and we don't have a tradition of primaries in this country.
So what you're saying is really Australians, the electorate is hungry to have a say in their body politic. And
yes.
I guess there is also so much dismay and distrust of our political institutions and really near hatred of many of our politicians, and particularly on the Liberal side. I mean, I've never
yes.
seen it. So you have been around much more than I have in Australian politics, but I've never seen such rancour within the party, the people who absolutely hate Malcolm Turnbull. I liken them to never-Trumpers.
Okay. Well, after the last federal election in Canberra in the Liberal Party representation, 49% of our senators and members were previously staffers.
Right.
Now, when Robert Menzies, and it's even higher in Turnbull's cabinet, it's about 52% were previously staffers. Now, if you look at Robert Menzies' cabinet and the calibre of people that made up his cabinets in the 1950s and 60s, they were all stars. They were all people who, in their before politics, had gone and done something with distinction, and then they then said, and they were often older. A big problem with our Liberal Party representation these days is they're young. Now we don't want to have any rule about age, but they're too young. So Australia Federation was the gold standard in democratic excellence. That is an indisputable fact. Our Constitution was written in a much more democratic way than the United States Constitution. Now, what happened? Australians have always believed we're a thoroughly democratic country, and our Constitution is, but our political parties, the gatekeepers of our democracy, are these closed 19th century shops, and there's been a lot of reform, not just in the English-speaking countries since the 1970s, across Europe, across Latin America. Political parties are democratically reforming. Even the Labor Party, after the Rudd-Gillard wars, they've now said that 50% of the votes in their leadership ballot come from the membership. Now, it's a step forward. It's a pretty basic model that they've got. It's better for the party room not to have any say, and it's better to have a big national convention rather than a postal ballot. But even the Labor Party's heading in the right direction. And
because currently the Liberal membership is shrinking to a point where it's really not representative of Liberal voters. A lot of them are, really quite offbeat, the people who are still willing to hang in there, I guess, because, as you say, they don't get much bang for their buck and they don't get a say. Yes. Now, interestingly, you've kindly enough allowed me to sneak preview the first chapter of your book, and at the end of it, you say that this democratisation would actually open up the party ideologically, really allow for people like Cory Bernardi, David Leyonhjelm, and others who have who should have really been part of that broad church that we talk about, who feel that they don't have a home in the party. Explain how that would work.
Okay, so if we have a big tent Democratic Party, the reality is that let's say in a seat like Wentworth, if we have a Liberal Party primary to elect our candidate in Wentworth, we are probably going to end up with a candidate that looks very, very similar to Malcolm Turnbull. Good, because Malcolm Turnbull reflects that electorate.
Right.
Now, if we were to go to somewhere like Mitchell, which is in the northwest of Sydney, there's a lot of churchgoers, small business owners. Okay, we would probably end up with a right-wing conservative Liberal candidate, and that's the good thing, the beauty about democracy is the candidate is genuinely going to reflect the Liberal Party supporters in that electorate. Instead
of having factions branch stack and put in and make deals and put the wrong people into the wrong thing. I mean, Mitchell's a good example, I guess. Alex Hawke is the member there, and he's a sort of a failed conservative. He pretended to be a conservative at the beginning, and the people there are stuck with him. That would be one of the most conservative, it's the Bible Belt of Sydney, one of the most conservative electorates in the country, and yet they have Alex Hawke representing them.
If there was a primary in Mitchell, I don't think Alex Hawke would win.
Right.
I think that we would. It's one of the fifth. I think it's the fifth safest seat in the country. We would end up with a star. Now, there's a decent chance that they're going to probably have some connection with the church. Good, because that electorate has a lot of churchgoers. Fine, no problem. If we had a candidate in a seat in maybe southwest Sydney, we might end up with a candidate who is of a non-Anglo background. Good. That's what democracy is going to give us, high calibre candidates. The other thing is not just to represent their electorates. If you're involved in a primary and you've woken up on a Saturday morning and say, I want to go and vote for who the Liberal candidate is, and someone says, vote for me because I've been a staffer for the last 10 years, okay, well, the people out there who are voting in the primary aren't really going to be overly impressed. But if they can say that they've done something of significance and they've also got the right platform, well, then I suspect that they will win the primary.
Now, democratic reform is sort of percolating through the party at the moment. We saw the Warringah motion, which Jim Molan, Tony Abbott and you were putting forward. That was didn't quite go all the way. Was that a good or a bad outcome?
It was a significant step forward. Okay, now, so all it did was it brought the New South Wales Liberal Party into line with the other divisions of the Liberal Party around Australia, where if you're now a member of the Liberal Party, you can have a vote on who your candidate is at a state and federal election for the seats you live in. But you have to be a party member and you have to be a member of a branch. Okay, so it's still quite restricted, but it's a step forward. What we really wanted, what the membership said at Rose Hill when we had the biggest meeting in the history of the New South Wales Liberal Party, what they really wanted to say was they wanted to have a vote on who our Senate and Upper House candidates were going to be. Now, the Senate and the Upper House, there are some good Liberals in there, but I'm sorry to say a majority of them are factional hacks. I'm sorry that, because to get it to under the current, if you want to become a senator in the New South Wales Liberal Party right now, it's only about 120 people choose. Now, who are these 120 people? Are they the wisest 120 people in the Liberal Party? Are they the people who are going to get out there and think, what's the best for Australia? Who's going to be the best senator of Australia? No, these 120 people are people who are like up to their necks in factionalism. That's like in a religious cult almost. They've got nothing else going on in their life. So when a hero like Jim Molan comes along and says, I want to be a senator. Now, if the Liberal Party, if there was any candidate that we should have rolled out the literal red carpet for, it was Jim Molan. Stopped the boats, and a terrific fellow, as you know. Now, those geniuses in the Senate pre-selection panel, they said they gave him a pathetic position that he had no chance of winning.
Right.
Okay. Now
and he only lucked into it because of the citizenship stuff.
He had two people fall out in front of him. He was pretty lucky, yes.
Yeah. And, I mean, because then you also get the situation where you've got someone like Don Harwin in the New South Wales Upper House, who's the energy minister, who's anti-coal for a coalition government when New South Wales makes most of its money from our coal exports. Ridiculous. So you're saying that you would have a much better quality of candidate and factional brawlings brawls would become a thing of the past.
I want factional brawls over policy.
Right.
I want people to get up there and say, vote for me because I believe in global warming, or vote for me because I don't believe in global warming, and let's have it out.
And there's your phone. That'll be
Yes.
Malcolm Turnbull calling you.
Yes.
Why did Malcolm Turnbull say that when he first took over from Tony Abbott, that there are no factions? He stood before a Liberal, federal meeting,
okay.
and he said there's no factions.
Yes.
And it seemed like he was genuine, but everyone laughed at him.
Well, look, in his defence, the truth is the Liberal Party was clearly built and has the spirit of no factions. In the Labor Party culture, the left and the right are institutionalised. Now, factions were always the thing that don't dare not speak their name in the Liberal Party. Now, in the last 2 decades, it's become front-page news, and we have become rigid factions. But Turnbull was accurately describing the Liberal Party philosophy and prior culture prior to the last couple of decades.
But no more. Would it be better if they actually did cement a formal faction? No?
Well, look, once we've got a democratised party, there's nothing to cement, there's nothing to formalise.
Right. So how likely is it that this will happen? And how long would it take?
A 100% chance that the reform manifesto put forward in Make the Liberal Party Great Again is going to be enacted. 100% chance. Now, I don't know whether it's going to take 6 months, 6 years or 6 decades.
Right.
Okay. But, look, if people told me, 6 years ago that there would never be plebiscite to the New South Wales Liberal Party, and now that has been ratified. Now, it was one almighty battle. The battle we've got coming up ahead of us is much more monumental, but it's the right thing to do. There's no good arguments against it, and it's not just like the moral thing to do, it's in the national interest.
And it will get rid of the influence of lobbyists?
Entirely. Because at the moment, since such a small group of people choose who's going to go into Parliament, so a lobbyist can choose who goes into Parliament, and then when they're in Parliament, the lobbyist can knock on their door and say, hey, you owe me a favour. I've got a company here that needs a $30 million grant. So what's going to happen when we have primaries to elect our lower house candidates and conventions to elect our Senate candidates and our leaders is that there's going to be tens of thousands of people voting. So it's not like no individual can deliver a position to somebody.
Unless he bribes 10,000 people.
Which you can't do.
Good on you, John. You're one of the unsung heroes of Australian politics. That was John Ruddick, Liberal Party reformer and author of the upcoming book, Make the Liberal Party Great Again. And judging from chapter 1, it's a very good read.